On your Thursday episode of Locked On Raptors, it's time to line up at the slop trough, little piggies. It's transaction time. We kick off free agency talk with a little game called Would You Rather.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Thursday, April the 25th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 10 seasons on various platforms. You can find all my work over on the website that don't work so good, at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and of course, you can join us in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, a great place to come hang out, talk ball, talk food, talk playoffs, talk the Denver Nuggets ripping the hearts from the LA Lakers, and much, much more. It's all over there on the Discord. It's free to join, a great place to come hang out. You interact with me all the time if that's something you're into as well. And if you don't want to interact with me, that's fine. There's like 280 other little sickos in there, just like you, who love the Raptors, love the podcast, and want to talk hoop in a nice, friendly environment. So come hang out. Of course, you can find the show for free wherever you get your podcast. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Always appreciated when you support the show. However you support the show, you can also do that by going to YouTube and subscribing to the video version of the show each and every day. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and get a heads up via push notification every single time the show goes live or premieres, so you never miss a second of that sweet, sweet Locked On Raptors action, baby. Today's show is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I've got a competitive side, and it's a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go for free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, let's get to it. On today's show, the Raptors have many, many potential sliding doors this offseason, from the cap space route to trade possibilities to not really using the cap space at all and keeping the guys they have in-house. All sorts of different ways they can go. And with there being so much uncertainty with the draft pick, with what direction they're going to be going, it seems prudent to kind of examine all of the different possibilities. And we'll begin to do that today with a little game we call Would You Rather. Very simple, two either-or situations. We talk about which one would be more favorable, and we will do that with our pal, Jamar Hines. Jamar, are you ready to talk about some free agent wish casting?
Yes, I am, and I love how you're starting this pod pissing off Lakers fans already. It's been, I mean, Raptors aren't playing, so my next level of entertainment has been watching the Nuggets take candy away from from baby with the Lakers, like every single game. It seems every game is the same, so it's been very, very fun. And this duo right here, Murray and Jokic, is awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, the Denver Nuggets, the official team of Locked On Raptors through the playoffs, of course. They are your official second team, and you're not just like a fair weather Nuggets fan. You were there for ring night. You traveled all the way there. You got a real cred. And so, yeah, I'm very happy you're getting to see LeBron James live out the Kyle Lowry, DeMar DeRozan fate when they used to play LeBron James all the time. It's got to be a nice therapeutic exercise for you, on top of just really damn fun watching the Nuggets play cool ball. The Raptors didn't play Nuggets level ball this season. They hope to someday, and a way they might be able to do that is by using their newfound potential cap flexibility this summer to go and do some stuff. Of course, the sort of projections vary. Bobby Marks has the Raptors at about $32 million as the max cap space they can get to. Daniel Hackett from Raptors HQ, my go-to cap guru around the Raptors, has them about $28 million or so, depending on a few things that take place. That gets impacted if the Raptors keep their pick in the top six. It's impacted substantially if they move up to 1 or 2, where those first-year salaries are pretty high. But for the purposes of this argument, we're going to go in and assume we're working with about 28 to 30 million bucks of cap space for the Toronto Raptors this offseason to go and add to their team. And so let's begin with the very first would you rather scenario I have for you here, Jamar. Would you rather the Toronto Raptors forego the cap space pathway and keep Bruce Brown around for his final season on his contract and bring Gary Trent Jr. back on something resembling a market value contract for him, maybe slightly sub Grayson Allen numbers is an example, as a comparison point? What would you rather? Would you rather they go and keep those guys, or spend $25 million a year, 4 years, $100 million on Malik Monk, the extremely very fun, electrifying sixth man of the Sacramento Kings, who the Sacramento Kings may or may not be able to actually pay enough to keep around in Sacramento long term after a very, very nice season. What would you rather, Bruce Brown, Gary Trent Jr., or Malik Monk?
So you brought up Grayson Allen's contract as a comparison, and the extension for him is 4 years and $70 million.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Brown, I've just felt from the start, it's basically a stopgap. He's just here for a good time, not for a long time. Although you could even argue if it was a good time to.
They seem to have fun near the end.
But
dancing around, wearing cowboy hat stuff.
Yeah, the first month was rough. He was smoking a bunch of layups. He was even questioning himself on Instagram why he was smoking said layups. But I do feel like he did find a pretty consistent groove through the last month of the season. Gary Trent Jr. is very can be very inconsistent. He did also, I believe, end the season on a high note. I believe he ended up shooting over 40% from three, and probably the contract he would command dropped compared to what the numbers he was putting up the last couple seasons. I do love Malik Monk's game. He is a more consistent player. He's a more explosive player. He's a guy that can actually finish at the rim that Gary can't. He's brought a playmaking element to his game. He's averaged over 5 assists a game with the Kings off the bench, which is a pretty big deal. Although even though he plays probably like 30 minutes a game, still coming off the bench and being that type of playmaker already. I mean, with the playmakers they have with Fox and Sabonis, that's a pretty big deal. If he were to be signed to that $100 million hypothetical deal, that'd be basically almost all of the cap that the Raptors have.
Yeah, it's basically their one move plus draft.
Right. Right. I'm honestly leaning towards doing that because I don't know. It just feels that. I mean, I just don't consider Bruce Brown a part of the Raptors' future in any way, shape, or form. And if Malik Monk were to sign a 4-year deal, I would. And he's already shown that he's a spectacular sixth man. So it's a role that he'd be comfortable filling as opposed to like challenging like RJ, for example, for a starting spot or something like that. I almost want to lean in that direction because the Raptors are kind of devoid of playmaking at the guard position. I mean, you got Quickly, and RJ did a little bit of that, but then after that, it's kind of a big drop off. So to have someone like a surefire sixth man come off the bench and do those type of things would be really great. Now his defense is.
It would fit right in with the Toronto Raptors of 2023-24.
Yeah. The defense leaves a lot to be desired, but I'm kind of a fan of that move as opposed to, keeping Gary and Bruce Brown around. I just think it'd be really fun. So I'm just going to go that direction.
So I do think this is a really interesting one, and I can be convinced either way. I think I'm going the other way. The argument for Monk is clear, right? Like it's a talent upgrade on the Bruce 100%. Brown, Gary Trent Jr. spots. He's just a better player than either of those guys. He's more dynamic. I actually think if you're signing Malik Monk to a deal like that, you're probably signing him to start in the backcourt with Emmanuel Quickly, with RJ Barrett 3, Barnes 4, Pirtle 5. Like that's a pretty dynamic offensive group. It probably helps pace you towards the top 10 in offense in the NBA. Defensively, you'll be following the Kings model very likely, where you're trying to balance out incredibly good offense with hopefully not wretched defense and hopefully just kind of passively bad. But I think I'm going against the idea of going after Monk because I don't know if Monk, while he brings skills that would be valuable to this team, I don't know if he changes their life so much to make it worth locking yourself in essentially to a team where Quickly is going to be making a lot of money. Barrett's making 25 or so. Barnes is going to be on the fun max soon. Pirtle's making 20 mil. Malik Monk's making 25. Like you're not going to have a ton of, you'll have contracts to trade, sure, and like matching salaries and whatnot, but you're not going to have a ton of flexibility in terms of shaking up that group. And does that group have the juice to, be a contender? I don't know. But, we'll see what happens with Barnes and quickly. Their development is what everything hinges on. But I just kind of think you're locking yourself into a team with a guy who doesn't exactly address the biggest need on this team, which for me is wing defense. And I just can't quite get there. And so with Brown and Trent, like Trent's going to come at a lower number. He offers the 3-point shooting that Monk does in a different way. It's less off the catch, less off the bounce and more off the catch and all that. He doesn't offer much defense. He can get your steals, etc. We know the Gary Trent Jr. defensive story by now. But I wonder if it's more like a sitting out of the free agent market, which may become a through line of today's episode from my end of things with these would you rathers. It's not a very good free agent market. Maybe you don't lock yourself into a really lucrative deal for a guy who doesn't totally change your life, and you sort of kick the can down the road. Obviously, they're not going to have cap space in 2025. You're going to have Scotty Barnes coming in. Quickly is going to be paid. This is your summer to go and do something with cap space. But I think a lot of the time, the best free agent deals are the ones that teams don't sign. Like there's just a lot of history of free agent deals kind of ruining teams' forward trajectory. And I don't know if the Raptors are in the spot right now, or Malik Monk makes a ton of sense when Bruce Brown can still be a decent player for you next season, help grease the wheels. There's more depth when you have two players versus one with those salary spots. And then you figure out, do you flip Bruce at the deadline for something or whatever, and you just have Gary around on a pretty reasonable deal. I think I'd prefer that. It's maybe not even my preferred outcome to have both guys back, but I think with the Malik Monk comparison, it's I tilt slightly towards preferring the Brown and Trent avenue than the Malik Monk one, but I think there are good arguments both sides.
That's fair.
Yeah. We'll come back on the other side, Jamar. We'll get into another one related to the not-so-good class of free agents at the wings, as well as the draft, and how those two things could be intertwined. We'll come back with more Would You Rather in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber and not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back at it here with Jamar Hines, the god of the game recap, who has no more games to recap over at Raptors Republic. It's very sad. Summer League can't come soon enough for you, I'm sure. Canada Olympic basketball, maybe you get in on that action. How are you doing without recaps, Jamar?
I mean, doing recaps for 7 months, I'm cool at the break. I'm cool
fair enough.
Just watch ball. But yeah, really nothing on the docket for me for the next 2.5 months, which is kind of weird, but yeah.
Nothing but
change of pace. It's okay.
Nothing but dipping into the transaction industrial complex with me here on the podcast. I'm very excited that we get to, make you answer questions that don't involve good, bad, and going forward for the next little while here. All right, let's continue on with our Would You Rather for today. Free agency, cap space edition. This next one is, would you rather the Raptors only add wings through the NBA draft this summer, or the Raptors only add wings via free agency this summer? So it's an either-or question. We're going to the far extremes here. Either they only take shots on wings with their 2 or 3 picks in the draft, or they only throw money at free agent wings to come and fill the gaps. It will likely be that they do a little bit of both, obviously, but that's not what the game is about. So what would you rather? All rookies at the wings, or all veteran free agent signings with the mid-level, with the minimum, with whatever, tools they have at their disposal? Maybe they split up their cap space between 2 guys or something like that. Lots of creative solutions here. We don't have to get into the mechanics. That's the Bobby Webster's job to figure out. But would you rather only draft wings or only sign wings this summer?
Because I'm not both. I mean, I feel like both pools are kind of underwhelming. Everybody has been talking about how underwhelming this upcoming draft is going to be. I'm not a draft draft expert by any means. I'm just going off what's being said. And then if you look at the free agency, like the names.
Can I read
don't
off
really...
some names? I have a list of
Sure,
names
please,
here. Yeah.
please,
All right. So
please do.
among the wings who will be free agents this summer, who would be attainable, we won't include Paul George, however cool that would be.
No.
Caleb Martin, Najee Marshall, Royce O'Neal, Kyle Anderson, Torian Prince, Kelly Oubre. This is the kind of range of dudes you're talking about.
Yeah. And some of those guys are also questionable defenders.
Mm-hmm.
And I still like Kelly Oubre for your mom's your grandma's blah blah blah. Anyway, so the refs. But
ref insubordination, good in my books. Sign him up.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just not in love with that class, and I feel like I'd probably be more comfortable just taking a shot at some rookies and hoping someone, really surprises us or something like that. And also, if I'm gonna be consistent in my opinion with I mean, like, it's not a strong opinion, but if I'm going to be consistent with my opinion of, maybe taking a run at Malik Monk, you won't have that money to throw at wings anyway. So I think I'm going to go the direction of the rookies and just see what sticks. Because, yeah, there's no one in free agency for me from a defensive standpoint where it's like, okay, we have to go get that guy. Mm-hmm. And also, I'm also kind of slightly burned by the last, well, was it it was free agency. Didn't the Raptors get Jalen McDaniels in free agency?
They did sign him with the biannual exception. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were really high on this like 6'9" player that could defend and maybe shoot threes, and that has just been. I'm sorry, I got to bring the guy up every podcast, but yeah.
No, man, he is your muse on this podcast. It's fine. We all have the guys that we could get hung up on.
Yeah, when I'm thinking of potential defensive wings that we're gonna get, I keep thinking him, and it's like PTSD, even though it's not PTSD because he's still on the team. So yeah, I gotta go in the direction of the rookies. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple other names that come to mind. There's like Kenyon Martin Jr., who everyone keeps telling me is good, but I've yet to see any actual proof that he is good. He's classic. He's in like the David Nwaba, KJ McDaniels tier of guy who played for the Rockets once, and everyone tells me is awesome, even despite the entire career suggesting that's not actually the case. There's Robert Covington. He's out there. Does PJ Tucker turn down his player option with the Clippers, considering he seems to hate the Clippers? We'll see. But yeah, it's a grim scene on the wing front. And do I think the most likely avenue to adding a wing is via trade? Actually, yes, I do. But again, not the game we're playing within the confines that I've created for ourselves here. I'm with you. I'm saying just avoid the free agent market like a plague if you can. Don't suck yourself into deals that are going to hamper you long term, and just take as many shots on wings as you possibly can. Like, I am perfectly fine if every one of the picks they take in this draft is on a wing and they address the other spots, which we'll get to coming up in the last segment via free agency, because I think those classes are a little bit more interesting. There's a little bit more in terms of talent plays and interesting fits with the bigs and the guards. With wings, it's just like a pretty rough slate of guys. I think the guy who probably would be the most interesting to me is Caleb Martin. Saw him have a nice game last night, leading the Heat over the Celtics in a hilariously juicy Celtics loss. And man, oh man, it's not going to happen. But if the Celtics lose to the Heat, this version of the Heat in the first round, I think we have to declare some kind of national holiday, because it would be the greatest thing ever. And all of my misgivings towards stupid Heat culture would forever be gone, because, man, it would be simply the funniest thing to ever happen in the NBA playoffs.
The takes are already flying, and I love it.
It's so good. Let's have more Bill Simmons melting down. That's what we want. It's fantastic stuff. Anyway, Caleb Martin, he feels like the most sort of interesting guy to plop in here. I always fear like Heat guys kind of losing the magic Heat pixie dust when they leave Miami. Maybe the pixie dust only thrives in humid climates. I don't know. But where are you out on Caleb Martin? Do you agree? Like, of that group I kind of read off, is he the most interesting to you?
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd say so. Yeah. When you were mentioning the list of guys, he's the only one that like had a positive reaction really for me. So yeah.
And just like a damn good playoff player. Like he always
Yeah.
seems to level it up in the postseason. He's 28. Like he's not a spring chicken or anything like that. But if you sign him for 4 years, 3 years, like you're not gonna, probably suck yourself into too bad an albatross deal. It's probably mid-level range, maybe slightly above. Like if it's Caleb Martin, I think that's probably the situation where you are renouncing Bruce and Gary. You're going cap space. You're not just using the mid-level exception. You're probably trying to split that cap space between two wings. Maybe it's like 16 for Caleb Martin a year and like 12 for Najee Marshall, or maybe that's too much for Najee Marshall. I don't know, but that feels more like the pathway there. Again, lots of interesting things they can do. Cap flexibility is very nice in theory. There's all sorts of different ways to use it, but using it effectively, a little bit more of a question. But yeah, Caleb Martin,
arguably the 2023 Eastern Conference Finals MVP, new award, whatever.
Yeah, that's the thing, man. Like his playoff numbers, like the last couple seasons, they just tick up. I mean, only 2 games so far this year, but he was really essential to that win last night over the Celtics. He's like the kind of prototypical player you'd want theoretically in a lineup between sort of RJ Barrett at the 2 and Scotty Barnes at the 4. Maybe his shooting's not quite dead eye enough. He's pretty low volume, 3.5 attempts a game over the last couple of seasons, mid 30% is kind of where he usually nets out. So maybe that doesn't quite, put you over the top shooting wise in your main lineup, but then you also have just like decent shooters everywhere. It's an interesting one. Let us know in the comments if Caleb Martin, Caleb Martin, Caleb Martin is someone who might tickle your fancy as a potential signing for the Raptors on the wings. Martin and Oubre is a 2-man duo. That's interesting. Like
maybe Caleb Martin's the State Farm guy, like Cliff Paul or something. I don't know.
Oh man! All right, we'll come back on the other side, Jamar. We're going to round it out with a couple of more, one more. Would you rather related to guards or bigs? We'll get to that coming up in just one sec. Today's show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Look, it's nice to have someone to talk to end of the day, whether it's you're dealing with big trauma that's happened in your life and you're trying to reckon with it, whether it's something small you're dealing with, like a life decision. Maybe you just want to have a little more TLC for the people who matter in your life and you want to know how to serve those relationships better. A therapist can help guide you through all those difficult life decisions and difficult life situations so you can handle those things in a way that aligns with your values and makes you ultimately happy. That's what we're all after, right? Is happiness, feeling good about ourselves. A therapist can be one of the avenues to help you get there. And it's nice thing is just like they're unbiased on your life. They're just walking in. They don't know you. They don't have like the sort of baggage that people in your life might have. They don't have the agendas. They just are there to offer unbiased thoughts on things that are going on with you. Therapy can be different for everyone. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports team, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible and suited to your schedule. You can visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. Today's show is also brought to you by DoorDash. Look, moms are a gift, and so you should give your mother the best this Mother's Day. Get gifts as thoughtful as she is with DoorDash. Select from hundreds of expertly crafted bouquets to the best of tech to self-care essentials and more delivered right to her door. Maybe you're like me. I live many hours away from my parents, and I would like to see them more often, but I can't see them for all the holidays and things like that. And so sometimes I'll just send my mom little gifties, little notes to let her know I'm thinking about her. Mother's Day is a great time for it, and DoorDash is the way to do it. Get all your Mother's Day gifts all in one place and get 50% off your next order up to $15 when you spend $15+ on your next flour, convenience, grocery, or retail order now with the code LOCKEDONNBA. That's the code LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply. Rounding things out here with Jamar Hines from Raptors Republic, talking all things would you rather regarding the Raptors offseason and free agent possibilities. Before we get into that, a reminder, Locked On Sports Today 24/7 is a thing you should be subscribed to on YouTube. It's a 24/7 stream of Locked On shows. And today, if you're an NFL head, it's a perfect day. We got our mock draft coverage and all of the actual draft coverage all running all day long over on the Locked On Sports Today 24/7. If you're an NFL draft fan, there is no better place to be today than Locked On Sports Today 24/7. Go subscribe. All right, Jamar, let's get into the final Would You Rather here. So throw out what we talked about before. The Raptors go into the offseason. They have their cap space. They've renounced Bruce Brown and Gary Trent Jr. They've drafted a whole bunch of wings. And I guess you're not throwing it about. It's in taking what we've talked about before and informing our decision-making here. That's better. They've drafted a whole bunch of rookie wings to hopefully fill the gaps long-term. And they're sitting there with, 25, 30-ish million bucks in cap space to burn. Would you rather the Raptors devote their cap space to a backup point guard or a third big man? I think wing is the biggest need on this team, but I think some backup ball handling could certainly help. Masai Ujiri mentioned a backup point guard at his end-of-season presser, so you would think that's going to be on their radar. And then a third big man to maybe offer some schematic versatility, playing between or with Jakob Poeltl, Kelly Olynyk. Maybe both of those guys sit, and this third hypothetical big plays with the Raptors core guys. Who knows? But what would you rather see the Raptors do here? Just to give you an idea of the classes we're working with in free agency, Kyle Lowry is going to be a free agent. That's number one for me. I don't think that will happen, but boy, oh boy, I would weep tears of joy if Kyle Lowry were to join the Raptors for the 30th season. That would be an absolute delight. That's option number one for me. But you've got D'Angelo Russell, Markelle Fultz, Tyus Jones, Monte Morris, Patrick Beverley, everybody's favorite guy. A few other guys, Chris Dunn, DeLon Wright, who's looking pretty good for the Heat right now. That's your kind of look at the backup point guard class. Center wise, it's maybe a little bit thinner, but you're looking at Nic Claxton's a UFA, Isaiah Hartenstein's a UFA, probably going to get paid big bucks. Daniel Tice is out there as just like a really long-term steady journeyman big. JaVale McGee's a free agent. That's fun. That's not the answer, but Thomas Bryant's had a pretty nice season. He's got a player option for next year he might opt out of. He's had a decent year with the Heat. What do you got here as far as your preferred avenue? Would you rather see them go with a point guard, a backup point guard behind Emmanuel Quickley, or a backup big with that free agency cap space?
My mind just changed over the last 15 seconds after when you were reading off the names, because in my head, I was still, and I understand that, there's a slew of injuries on the team, but I was just traumatized over the last couple months of the season where, Jakob Poeltl was basically in and out, and they had to keep playing Kelly at the 5, and there's a major rebounding disadvantage. And then, even games when Kelly didn't play, sometimes you'd have, Parlay Porter there until that happened. And yeah, it was just every game was just a severe disadvantage inside, and it had to be leaning towards a backup big. But when you're naming off the names, I'm a pretty big fan of Monte Morris and Tyus Jones type of backup point that would help, with some of the playmaking. Not to say that the Raptors are completely devoid of that, because, they do have Quickly. RJ can do a little bit of that. And I didn't even mention Scotty when we were talking about that the first time, who can, slot into the point guard role if needed. But yeah, if I'm going off those names, I would go in the direction of the backup point as opposed to the third big, and just hope that, Poeltl doesn't brush against somebody and, dislocate a finger in some freaky type of way. And I do like the different styles between Poeltl and Olynyk coming off the bench and providing a completely different aspect offensively with his elevated playmaking and shooting. So that combo is pretty good. The third big would just basically be kind of like in terms of insurance if, those guys go down. But yeah, I completely flipped my mind when you were reading off those names. So I'm just going to go in the backup point direction. Although I still think a third big is important for just March and April.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's tough, right? Like Jakob Poeltl, when he's healthy, drives a lot of positive play for this team and makes you feel pretty all right about the center situation. But the degree to which they fell off a cliff, not just in March and April, but in January when he got hurt as well, like some insulation there wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And I love Kelly Olynyk, but I think Olynyk probably is best suited as a 4 next to a more sort of switchable, rim protecty, clean up the mess type big man. Like, I think him and Pirtle can play some together. I do think that's a little bit slow when it comes to a front court. You maybe want a little bit more quickness and mobility from your center in that situation. But I think those lineups can work. We didn't really see a ton of Olynyk and Pirtle just because there wasn't a whole lot of runway for those lineups to play together. The guy who comes to mind for me is Nic Claxton. And I'm not like a huge Nic Claxton guy, but I do think stylistically that, like, as a fit, particularly next to Olynyk, it's pretty interesting in second units. His lack of shooting is a problem. And like, he's just not, when he was at 70% from 2-point range 2 seasons ago, or like the season before this past one, like, that's a different story. He's like a really, really awesome player. Fell off to, 63% on twos, which isn't terrible or anything like that, but it's also not like elite. And I don't know if the rest of his offensive profile is exciting enough to really have him be someone I'm like comfortable spending $20 million a year on in free agency. Maybe he doesn't cost quite that much, but I'm not super sold on it. He's probably the guy who stands out, though. I forgot to mention Jonas Valanciunas, our dear pal, UFA as well. Don't think he would be a fit with the current setup in the front court as much as I love reuniting with old friends. And so, yeah, I think I come back to the point guard thing as well. I just think there's more guys there. Lowry obviously would be just like an absolute delight. I don't know how effective it would be. He'd be going into year 19 in the NBA. He's 38 years old. Like, you're only getting so much, but I do think there's like a spiritual element to having Kyle Lowry on your team that is valuable. He can certainly fill in backup point guard minutes, I think. And, he's still like one of the 5 most important players on the Sixers, which is kind of insane. Maybe speaks more of the Sixers than it does of Kyle. Tyus Jones, I really like. I'm curious if he's going to be okay with a backup role or if he's just looking to start somewhere, and what team is out there looking to have him start. Maybe it's just the Wizards. Monte Morris, I think, I've kind of had my eye on Monte Morris for many, many years, even before like the Fred VanVleet exit and all that stuff as a backup point guard for this team. So I'd be down there. There's just more to work with the guard class. But yeah, all of this entire episode has mostly just bummed me out about the free agent class, Jamar.
Regarding Claxton, do you think the Nets even like he's a UFA, right?
He is a UFA, yeah.
He's a UFA. Okay. In my head I kept thinking he was like restricted. I don't know why. But yeah, okay. I in my head I was like, probably the Nets keep him, but he's a UFA, not an RFA. But we'll see.
And things got weird with Brooklyn this year, man. Like, I have no idea what to expect or read about that team because I don't know what they want or where they're going or who they liked from their previous team.
Right.
Yeah. But yeah, that's the free agent market. It's a grim scene. If you're someone who is hopeful for trade action being the thing that improves this team this summer, I guess good news last night with the Pelicans falling down 0-2. They got wings aplenty. Maybe there's a wing to be grabbed there. Maybe Brandon Ingram's not everyone's flavor, but I don't know. It'd be pretty fun. Just saying, it'd be kind of interesting. We'll examine the trade sliding doors, of course, I'm sure many, many times between now and the start of the offseason in earnest in late June, early July. But for now, Jamar, we'll leave it there. Thanks so much, buddy. Anything you want to promote for the good people out there?
No. I don't have anything going on at the moment. You can just follow me, JAMARBH. That's always fun. But yeah, in terms of, we've talked about it in terms of actual like content, I'm on a little bit of a break, just enjoying the NBA playoffs. So yeah. Follow if you want to follow.
Promoting watching the Denver Nuggets. It's good for the soul. It's really good stuff. Thanks so much, man. Always a pleasure to have you on the show. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. With that, we will leave it off here. Thanks so much for tuning in. Follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend. Always appreciated. Tomorrow, I will likely do a podcast taking a look at some of the wing prospects in the top tier of the draft the Raptors might be looking at 6, or if they jump up. So we'll talk a little Stephon Castle. We'll talk Ron Holland. We'll talk Matas Buzelis. Do a little bit of research on those guys and come back and report my findings. We'll have that on tomorrow's show for you to send you off into the weekend. Until then, thanks so much. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
I forgot about this. Airball.
Yeah.
Online, though.
It was online. Airball. Bummer. Bye.